Welcome to Rise and Thrive, Conversations for Greatness. We bring you captivating conversations with extraordinary individuals who have conquered challenges, achieved greatness, and are making a positive impact in the world. This is your go-to source for inspiration and motivation. I'm your host, John Merkus. Today, I'm thrilled to bring you a conversation with a person whose presence radiates positivity and leaves you feeling uplifted with every interaction. Our guest is not just a successful businessman, but an exceptional husband and father to 3 wonderful kids. Not only is he an accomplished educator with a bachelor's degree in education, but he's also committed himself wholeheartedly to making a lasting impact in the world. He has traversed the globe. He carries with him a remarkable positive energy that is truly infectious. And when the moment calls for it, he's known to deliver an incredible hug. Join me in extending a warm welcome to the one and only Matt Greening.
Thank you, John. I can hear the crowds cheering in the background.
I need to add sound effects. I need to add sound effects for that kind of stuff. And thanks for joining me. I know you're a dedicated listener to the show, so it's really lovely to have someone that has listened to every episode come on and be a guest. And I hope it's a real buzz for you later when you hear it back and you can hear yourself.
Of course, I'm the number 1 ticket holder.
I love it. So I want to start with something. Now, I am going to give you full license to not be humble, to bathe in the glory. And I want to read you something, and then I'm going to ask you something about it.
Okay. Hit me.
If Matt says he'll do something, he does it. He always finds the time to help out colleagues and is as a reliable person as you'll ever meet. He does this all with a smile on his face and a wink in his eye. One of the most genuine and trustworthy people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. Now, someone has said that about you, and I think that is great and remarkable because I'm remarking on it. So I want to ask you, why do you think that person said that about you?
I don't know, but I'd like to have a chat to them. I think that I pride myself in my day-to-day of being responsive to people, even if sometimes questions are probably not best directed towards me. And just being helpful. I don't know. I've always had a degree of self-satisfaction in service, I guess, in serving people and helping people. And I guess I try to bring people along for the ride as well, where they're seeing me behave in that manner, a helpful, happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and hopefully that they'll emulate that as well.
Yeah, so you're having a positive impact with the people that you interact with. And I love that sense of service and helping as you go along. And that I can hear that mindset of I've met some people that have a mindset of that's not my job. And that doesn't sound like you have that mindset. And that allows you to connect with more people and be of service to more people. And you've obviously left a very lasting impression on this particular person.
I hope to. I hope to indirectly, rub off on some people. I don't like using touch so much, but rubbing off is probably more my vein. So
I think either way, I'm happy with it. And I wanted to also ask you about your Bachelor of Education.
it was an interesting one. It wasn't something that I ever saw myself doing in getting into education. Certainly when I finished high school in the late 80s. 1990, actually, I finished high school. Job market was very different here in Victoria, Australia. There weren't a lot of avenues for young males living in the country. Certainly my enjoyment of sports and success on the sporting field led me into a Bachelor of Education with a focus on PE teaching, physical education. And that was a wonderful experience for me for the time that I was in teaching. I didn't ever see myself standing in front of a group of kids, directing them on how to kick a drop punt or to, do a Frosby flop. But it was something that I embraced and something that while I did it, I loved doing.
Yes, because I know you've moved on from there, but what a great platform to start with in terms of learning and developing yourself and then passing that on to others. Now, is that what had you go to Dubai?
Yeah, it was a girl I met who I ended up marrying who said one day, "Do you want to go and teach overseas?" And I must have been distracted when I said yes because I can't actually recall that conversation. And the next thing you know, we had a principal flying out to Melbourne to interview us. And the first question that she asked was, "Will you be married if we give you the job?" To which I said, "There's your proposal, honey."
Oh, that's amazing. So it's because of this offer to teach in Dubai, and they've said, obviously for cultural reasons or whatnot, they prefer you to be married, and so that was the kind of default proposal.
Just fast tracked what was going to be inevitable anyway. So
Of course, of course. And how long have you been married now?
I would say 17 years, 18,
Great.
18 next year. So.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So, like you say, inevitable. You can tell that by the test of time. So, what about going to Dubai? Because that's pretty. And how many years ago? Well, that was over 17 years ago, right? Or so
Full
did you
on.
get married here and then go, or did you? How did you?
Yes. So it was straight from the interview, straight to the registry office, register a wedding, sell the house, sell the cars, and head off into the wild blue yonder. Arrived on probably the hottest day I ever experienced in my 6 years in the UAE with a big shamal, a big sandstorm. And I looked at my then bride and said, "What have we got ourselves into?" Um, but that being said, we planned to stay for 2. We ended up staying for 6, had our first boy born over there, Jack. And yeah, it's really, I think, that experience from those times in the UAE allowed me to achieve the greatness that I can achieve in a day to day. I don't think without that experience I'd be doing what I'm doing now.
That's wonderful. So, what a mindset of travel, throwing it out there, kind of thing. Whatever the words are, to be like adventurous, because it's quite a different country and culture over there. And I just love that spirit of adventure that you and your wife went over to have. So you did say that it kind of gave you a bit of a foundation or led to some of the greatness that you're able to achieve these days. So I'm really interested in what were some of the things over there that happened or that you had to overcome or that you just had to have a particular mindset to achieve some greatness.
I've got to say, in reflecting on it, and I turned 50 last year, late last year, and it allowed me a point in time for reflection on where I'd come throughout my life, and in the lead up to today, in speaking with you, it allowed me to sort of look back with a critical eye over my life. One thing that I realized in hindsight was I wasn't much of a risk taker. I was such a very safe player in everything I did. I didn't go put myself out there that much. I didn't put myself in situations where I could potentially fail. And I think that prevented me in dreaming big. Certainly, in my time in the UAE, I was in a couple of schools, a couple of international schools, and the second one I was in Dubai International Academy. Shout out to all the staff and students at Dubai International Academy. It was an international baccalaureate school where it embraces that internationalism, but also embraces a number of different values that we tried to instill in our students. And as staff that are preaching the IB, we also embodied, I guess, a lot of those values as well. It became a part of our daily vernacular. Our school awards were around the IB values as well. And I think that international experience and that international school and that international mindset allowed me to take away some of those values into my day to day. Whereas prior to that, I didn't have those focus, I guess, on my life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a little bit of research last night and went back over the IB values, and I just like to share them with everyone, if that's okay.
Please do.
Um, so about being an inquirer, about being curious, being a knowledgeable person and happy to share knowledge, to be a thinker, a critical thinker, and to evaluate things, being a good communicator, both verbally and in written communication, being a principled person. You know, if you see something that's wrong, speaking up, being open minded and not being just so focused and closed minded where you don't consider other options or other avenues, being a caring person, being a risk taker, and that's probably one of the biggest ones I can relate to, I guess, in our conversation. Being balanced, trying to find well balance in your life, and also being reflective, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Reflecting
Mm-hmm.
on your day to day, reflecting on the different hats that we wear in our lives. So yeah.
They're wonderful. And I can see and hear those traits in that initial comment or that initial feedback that I read out to you of caring, good communicator, all the things that you just mentioned. I could see that they were there. Now, it's interesting that you say that you didn't feel like you were a risk taker, although you went to Dubai as newlyweds into virtually the unknown across the other side of the world to have an adventure. That sounds pretty risky to me.
Yeah, but that was just to impress a girl, really. When you think about it, she was the one for me, and I would do anything for her. And I was the type of guy initially who would buy a second-hand car, worry about the risk attached with buying a second-hand car, but in the test drive, I'd take it through a car wash just to make sure that the windscreen didn't leak or anything like that. That's how much of a safe player I was. Through to someone that was hanging out of a sunroof of some beaten up car near the Israeli border as I was on my way to the Dead Sea. I went from one extreme to the other pretty quickly. So.
Isn't it amazing how the women in our lives propel us forward to do things we might not do otherwise?
I agree.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anything else about Dubai that you'd like to share? Because it sounds very exotic. If you haven't been there, it's a distant world. You've been there for 6 years. You've shared those incredible values with us, which I'll definitely have in the show notes, so we can recall those ourselves as we listen, or after we listen, or even before we listen. But what about? Is there anything that happened to you in Dubai that you can recall that you can share with us?
The whole experience was interesting. I remember when we arrived in the UAE, we were actually in the Emirate of Sharjah, which is very conservative. You need to speak Arabic to actually, go grocery shopping, that type of thing. Whereas Dubai, far more cosmopolitan. But I remember going out onto the soccer pitch, and my wife was being the PE teacher at that school at that stage, and we saw this glint off in the far, far distance on the horizon, and we weren't quite sure what that was. A really bright, reflective light. And we came to find in the first couple of weeks we were there, it was the start of the building of what is now known as the Burj Khalifa. And it was quite interesting that in the time we were there, which was really a golden age in the UAE with their development and their growth from 2006 through to 2012, that when my son was born and on the night of his birth, they had the opening of the Burj Khalifa, and we looked out of the hospital windows and saw amazing fireworks display as they opened it. So we feel that like our time in the UAE bookended the building of that one building. And so when we see it on the news or when it's a Lego display that my kids might buy, we reflect on that time and what we saw change in that period of time too, while that amazing building was being built.
What a great experience, and to have it bookend like that, and for them to put on fireworks just for you and the birth of Jack. That's marvelous of them.
Yes, I'm sure he thinks of it that way. Yes.
The reason I say that as well, it rings a bit of a bell with me because when my parents came to Australia as migrants, when their firstborn was born, my dad heard the church bells as he left the hospital. He thought that they put them on for him because he came from a small town, and they might have done that for a birth of someone else, but not in a big capital, not in a big major city of a country. That's so I'm glad. Let's say that they were for Jack. That's awesome.
Now, one thing, John, I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
One thing that Jack had picked me up on recently, and he noticed it in a lot of the conversations I have with adults, is often I inquire, because I've been focused in education and I still work in education. He noticed that often when I'm meeting people, I ask them an unusual question. And that unusual question is, what school did you go to?
Mm-hmm.
And often I find in asking that, I get to learn a lot about the people before they say, what their career is and what their job is and how that sometimes define them. Sometimes I find that the schooling experience that people had has led them on the pathway to where they are now. And so for you, where did you go to school, John?
Well, thank you, Matt. That's very nice of you to ask. And I really like the question and what you think about it, because it has so many possibilities for answering. And it is a question that is, to put some judgment on it, better than a small talk question. Oh, how's the weather? Or, that's sometimes that's appropriate depending on your situation. But I love that question because it shows you're interested, and it can lead to a really good conversation for greatness. Well, or just a great conversation. So, having said all of that, I went to a school in primary school, and it was 3 doors down from my home.
Wow.
And so imagine as a parent now, I think, oh, how good, see you later, kids. And, they're going to make it because they're 3 doors down and then they're at school and that they're safe. And that's the main thing as a parent you want to make sure of. And I had a great experience there. It was a small school. And then for high school, as a career, there was 3 things I thought that I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a builder. I thought I wanted to be in the army, or I wanted to be an air steward. Quite quite different vocations. I thought those were the things that had interested me. But this building one really had me at the time. And so all the boys went to a school called St. Bede's, and that was an all-boys school. And all the girls went to a school called Star of the Sea, which was all girls. And being in a co-ed school, I wanted to continue that. I didn't want to go to an all-boys school, and I wasn't able to go to the all-girls one. So Sandringham Technical School was like a trade-focused tech school. And so I thought, great, I can go there. It's co-ed. It's not too far from home. And I can learn to be a builder. Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your granny. And it took me a really short time to learn that I had no skill in that area whatsoever. And I really do respect all the tradespeople out there. What I found was about measuring a lot, and I just want to spend my day measuring things all day.
I can imagine.
Now, I know there's a lot more to it than that, but that's as a kid, that's what occurred to me. So I ended up doing applied science at a tech school and business studies. So when you do business studies at a tech school, you're there doing law, economics, typing, things like that with all the girls, because all the guys are doing the trade stuff. So I ended up spending a lot of time with the girls. But the main thing that I learnt about that is my touch typing. I learned how to touch type on a typewriter, and that is a skill that has given me so much. I was going to say pleasure, but it's helped me so much throughout my working career and still does today. So I can type very fast.
I went to a similar type of school, but I was in rural Victoria, and the
Yep.
school, when I started there, I was in year 4, primary school, and we pretty much when I finished year 12, we had the exact same children in the class, about 20, 25 of us, and it was an interesting school in that it was a TAFE school, but also a high school as well. So we got to do that touch typing, and of which I cheated in. I'll admit now. Sorry, Mr. Adams. I did blow on the piece of paper that was covering our hands during the typing test to actually eyeball the keys. I just do a gentle stream of air that would lift it up, and I could actually see. So sorry, Brett. I did cheat on that touch typing test, and it's probably held me back a little bit in more recent years. But yes, there's an admission of guilt right there.
But it's a really good skill, and I've noticed the kids today are good at typing. But I don't know if they actually do touch typing. But I know that it's just how they communicate.
Well, it's ironic you touch on that. With my involvement in education, it's with an IT focus, and a lot of schools in Australia, a lot of kids, in years 3 and 5 and 7 and 9 do a NAPLAN testing each year, and that requires typing as part of it. So a lot of schools, with the advent of iPads that don't come with a physical keyboard, are now explicitly teaching typing to students, knowing that they full well will need that skill when it comes time to do this test.
That is fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that, because when I see people that can't do it, I think, oh, you could just be saving so much time by doing that. So awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. And now I understand a bit better about your passion for sport, having learned that as a young man and then taught that both here in Australia and overseas. So I was wondering, what is it about sport that inspires you?
I think sometimes the acts of some individual players where they perform at a level above themselves and above what we've seen. Recently in the cricket, we've seen some amazing batting by Glenn Maxwell, which has set records and that type of thing. But I find, and I found in my adult life, that sporting clubs and sporting groups have a sense of community that extends far past the playing field. So I am on the committee of my son's junior football club, a local junior football club here in Victoria, and I see that how that does bring people together and the great things that come out of that. It's something where, I talked earlier about service, and it's something that I am continuing, I guess, in a different avenue now where I'm serving my community as part of that club.
Yeah, so about bringing people together, sense of community, achieving something together is what I was
Yeah,
thinking
a
about.
success on the in the meeting room that is extending to the playing field. So we're looking at different
Mm,
ways of, raising funds for the club, getting better sporting equipment, bringing in external parties for training for the
yeah,
children.
yeah.
It's quite good, better than I anticipated it to be.
Now, people define success and or greatness in different ways, and you touched on it a little bit there, but I was wondering, how do you define success and how might have that, has that definition maybe changed over time?
I was listening to a recent podcast of yours where Matt was on, and he was talking about it being greatness being an event or being something that we strive for, a goal. But I don't see it that way. I disagree with Matt. And I would say that I define greatness as a process where you are constantly learning. I'm back to those IB values, International Baccalaureate values I talked about, where you're constantly learning to self-improve. And it may be where you're learning a new skill, where you're learning a new discipline. I've not hobbies so much, but I've got involved in a number of different things where I'm trying to be that balanced person, that well-rounded person, where I'm learning of things that I normally wouldn't expect myself to be involved in. So yes, I think success and greatness is people that are always looking to achieve even small successes. I know you've talked previously about showing gratitude and thinking about. I listened last night of you talking about when you put your head on the pillow, you talk about how you think of three things, and they don't necessarily have to be big things like you got the job, but certainly I think trying to have little successes along the way is something you should strive for, and I think that challenge in achieving those things is what propels us forward in our lives.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, the other Matt, because you're my second Matt on the show, he talked about greatness as the outcome, and you're talking about it as part of the process.
Part of our lives, yes.
Yeah, on a daily basis. Great. So, with everything that you do, you're super dad, super husband, got a great business, involved in the community, in sporting area. What are some of the habits or rituals that you do to keep yourself going? Because I would imagine, sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes there might be some sleep needed because you're so busy, you might not be getting as much. So, and we all have that. We all have that in our lives. And so I ask you because I think if there's some things you're doing that can remind the listeners of some things that they might have been doing that they are not doing at the moment, or they could be brand new things. And so I just really like to understand from our guests, what are those things that you do to really help propel you and contribute to your well-being?
I guess Emily touched on it in one of your earlier casts as well, where she talked about, actually, they were your words. It was, don't just think it, ink it. I'm a big believer in that. Certainly in my day-to-day, my work life, I use Microsoft OneNote as a tool for recording what I achieve, but also to allow me to put my future plans in place. So instead of me ruminating on an idea and maybe overly worrying about things, I will write it down for tomorrow, and it's a task that
Mm,
I will then address tomorrow when it's time to address it. So certainly, I recording and writing what you've achieved, and certainly what you're wanting to achieve in a work sense, is a
mm,
wonderful thing for my peace of mind, I guess, and for my sleep as well. Wake up 3 a.m. and you have this thought about something that you wanted to maybe follow up on. I'll jot it down, put it aside, and then deal with it the next day. One big thing that I've found, I always pride myself in having a really good memory. From my early teaching days, in country Victoria, I went from a 43 student school through to a 300 student school, and when I moved to Melbourne in the early 90s, the school I was at had 1,000 children, and I was a PE teacher at the school and a little bit of IT, and I had to remember all of their names, and that was
wow.
a big challenge and something that I practiced and something I worked at, and I think that's extended into my adult life too, in the recall of names and people's faces. And one thing I'm finding in my older age, with the number of different things we need to remember, is that sometimes our memory can be a bit of an enemy and maybe not necessarily our best of friends. So often what I'm trying to do, and a part of my responsiveness, is to try not to remember anything and to act immediately. So if
Well, you've
I've
got to say more about that.
Well, I just find that yeah, the best way to remember things is to not remember, is to actually address them as soon as you possibly can, and that way you don't need to recall it. So, I'll get a text message from someone, can you please give me a call when you've got a moment? I'll call them immediately if I can, and address what they're wanting. So it feels sometimes like my life is one long, I don't know, steeplechase, one long hurdles race, that never ends. But I just try to address things as soon as I can, and then put them to the side or put them behind me where I don't actually have to come back on. I've been working with
Gotcha.
a large secondary school in assisting them with a big IT infrastructure change. And we had put in a request for equipment, and with the global constraint on IT hardware, we were given a lead time of 12 months. And that's something that hasn't sat well with me, because I don't like having to recall and go back to this one task. I want to address it and then to move on with others. One thing I've also come to learn is that motivation is a great thing to have, but it's far better to be a disciplined person in what you're doing. So,
Ooh, yeah, okay, go for it.
all right, so to show self-discipline means that you don't need to be motivated to do something. So, in the case of, a gym routine, to be disciplined and actually following a schedule where you might go, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and have your rest days, to be disciplined in doing that doesn't require you to be motivated.
Yeah, right. Well, I could say to you, don't you need to be motivated to be disciplined?
Possibly, but then we're sort of chicken and egg catch 22 type thing there. But yes, I think so. But I think if you strive to be a disciplined person and
Yep.
you show that self-discipline, you don't need motivation. You don't rely on motivation to get you out of bed to
Yeah.
go for that run or whatever it might be.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha. And I love that that works for you. How you say you want to get on to things and take action so you don't need to commit it to memory. So it's like, oh, I must remember to do that, and adding to all the head miles that we all do, as well as writing down the things so they're out of your head and you can deal with them at the appropriate moment. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the gentleman said, if you finish your day, go to bed, go to sleep, whatever it is, whatever your finish is, and you don't know what you need to achieve tomorrow and haven't written it down, that's not going to serve you, because then you're prone to going, oh, I must remember that, I should do that. Or you wake up and you go, and you get yourself ready and go, well, what am I going to do now? It's like, well, if you've already got your list there, it doesn't have to be 100 things long detail, but it's like, yeah, today I want to achieve this and this and this. And I wrote that down yesterday. So I'm already primed my conscious and subconscious to be helping me work through and deal with that already. I found that was a really good tip, because how often do we finish the day and go, oh, cool, that's over, I'll go and do whatever now, and then you don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. Well, you think it's in your mind, but it's not structured enough to be able to do and get the results as quick as what you'd like.
I know in my teaching life, I'd actually put too much in my to-do list, and often I was then bumping what I didn't get achieved today that I'd planned to do today into the next day, and it became too much. And I've simplified it a lot, and I'm fortunate in the industry that I'm in that I don't necessarily have too many things in that to-do list. Often my
Mhm.
role is quite responsive. And reactionary. Often, yeah, like you say, what what occurs in my day is something that I often wake up not knowing. And
Right.
today I've had a number of different requests and I guess activities that I'm being involved in that I had no visibility of. Yes, they're reasonable to perceive them, but certainly they hadn't come to me. So I do find in quiet times of the academic year, school holiday periods, that I'm often quite idle and not used to being idle, where I'm used to actually being on a bit of a
Mm.
conveyor belt, if you like, or a bit of a treadmill where I'm running at a
Hmm.
million miles an hour and dealing with things as they come at me.
Right. So rather than a list of things, and I can understand as a teacher, you would know well in advance what you're doing in a particular week of the term and things like that. So by nature of the work that you're doing, I would imagine it's more of a mindset that you've got to adopt to be open to service and willing to help, rather than here's 10 things that I want, 5 things that I need to make sure that I get done today.
Pretty much, yeah. The things that have come to me that I've addressed this morning already were things that, yeah, I didn't anticipate doing, but I've actually addressed them and I've moved on to whatever else my day has in store for me.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, because I hadn't thought about it that way before. So thank you for that.
And I'm sure different
And
industries there's some similarities. It's certainly what I'm doing in a day to day now is far, far different from my teaching days, and I quite like it.
so I'm interested in both your personal and your business life. You can talk about the importance of self-belief and how that has had a role in your journey so far. So you talked about how things have changed and you feel like you're more risk taker, or you learned to do that kind of thing. And so can you expand on that a little bit about them? What role has self-belief played in your journey so far?
I think it's an interesting question, John. I often looking back on things when I've involved myself in different schools that I've worked at over time, and certainly my change in work roles that I've had in more recent years, I often have experienced a bit of imposter syndrome for those first 6 months of the role. But it's then
Mm.
I've eased myself into the role and become familiar with the roles that I've had, realizing that I do have the ability to do the role and to perform the tasks of those different roles, be it a assistant principal in an international school and to a director of a small business that I run now. It's quite interesting where it's just taken me time to realize that I can do it. And I often don't need anyone else to assist me in what I need to do. I just put my head down and propel myself forward and get the job done.
It's interesting you talk about, or you mentioned imposter syndrome, because I think that many, 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 many people feel the same way, in that, especially when you first start something, you think, oh, can I do it? Should I be doing this? Or if you're in a career work sense, wow, they gave me the job. Maybe they thought I was better than I was. And then your own head is stopping you, because we've said before, you might recall in an episode we say you're having life's a conversation. You're either having one with yourself or with someone else. So the conversation you're having with yourself is, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, when are they going to find me out that I can't actually do this?
Hmm.
And it's interesting that you mentioned then over time, you start to get that self belief with the experience, and you just do the best you can with what you've got at the time every day. And then that feeling dissipates, because when you think about it, no one would ever get an experience greater than what they are now if they didn't try something that they didn't know how to do.
I agree.
So, yeah. So, and I've heard the expression imposter syndrome used a lot lately. And yeah, I was just thinking about it in that way, is that, yes, it's a thing, but I guess it's just an acknowledgement of, and how you frame it, an acknowledgement of, I don't know how to do this yet. And that's the important thing, yet.
Yeah, in my day today, I'm working with schools, government schools, and helping them find their next technical support person. And often when I'm speaking with these young people and older people that are applying for these roles, they're often saying to me in the first few months in the role that they are feeling like an imposter, especially if it's a new career for them or a career change for them as well. And part of what I do in my day-to-day role is to try and set these people up for success, where I make them aware of imposter syndrome before they actually feel it and experience it themselves, and let them know that they've got it. And if they don't have it, then they've got me and my support team to assist them anyway. So I think when you are in a role that can be quite solitary, and where you don't necessarily have a lot of people behind you or beside you to have that's quite isolating, and that's where I struggled in the first 6 months of the role that I have now. I did enjoy getting the same question twice because I knew the answer. But for the
Yeah.
first 6 months, it was like every question was a new question for me, and I didn't necessarily know where to go to get that answer for whatever it might be. Whereas now, in the I oversee about 130 people in 180 different organisations. I want them to be successful. I want them to feel that they're supported, because that support will allow them to achieve greatness in what they do.
What great support that is, because that is a foundation for allowing people to thrive, where you feel like you can ask questions, you won't be judged, you won't be given the sack, so to speak. That's an Australian expression. You won't be told to leave the job, or however you say it in other organisations.
Mm.
And so I really applaud you for building that kind of culture in the places where you're working. And I can really appreciate how that would be a great foundation for people to thrive. And I've heard a friend of mine who's a recruiter say, we are more interested in recruiting for attitude than skill set. So skills can be learned. Attitude is a little harder to shape, uh, and that also affects the culture. So,
Mm.
excelente, my man.
Yeah, well, it's a day-to-day conversation with me that, in the role that I have and the people that I'm supporting, they need three attributes. And one is communication skills. Certainly another is that desire, that innate desire to want to help and serve people. And then the
Mm,
third aspect is having a technical ability, in routine technical support. And I think
yeah.
that if people are successful in two of those areas and strong in two of
Mm,
those areas and deficient in one of them, certainly I can assist them and help them. But if they
mm,
struggle in two or more, then they're probably not cut out for the role that they're taking. But yeah, I find that in roles that I've had, the ones that I've really loved and enjoyed are the ones that I've been successful in, and that success has a knock-on effect with those that are around me. And so that's what I try to do with the technicians that I support: allow them to love what they're doing and enjoy what they're doing, and
mm.
and be successful in what they're doing, and then that has a benefit for the people that they're serving.
And I love how some of these things cross over. So it's not just business related, it can be personal as well. Because if you need to be a good communicator in your work, you don't just switch that off when you get home. You can apply that to home as well. So I love how there's a crossover. I always say you don't leave yourself at the door when you turn up to work. You bring yourself, and if you can bring your best self and be supported in the way that you're saying, then you can thrive. That is fantastic. I'd want to work at your place, mate, with you.
That would be interesting.
That'd
That's
be
all I'll say on that
easy.
one, John.
Especially when if I get up there and say, "Hey, you're either having a conversation with yourself or with somebody else." That's life. That's it. That's like, oh my god, who is this guy?
Yeah,
I just want my computers fixed.
pretty much, pretty much.
Oh, nice. I'm really interested in who inspires you.
That's a tough one, and that was a one that I don't necessarily have a direct answer for. It's not one individual people. I think if I look throughout my life and reflect on my life, there's people that have come into my life, some people that are still in my life, who've encouraged me and supported me, and I guess they're the people that, not necessarily people who believe in you, or give you praise or give you recognition for the work that you do, but maybe some attributes of people that I've come across throughout my professional life and personal life that I would like to emulate in what I'm doing. In my early teaching experience, one thing that my university did very, very well was to give me a variety of experiences. And what I was able to do in that time was take away some great practices that I saw from some of the educators that I was working with. And when it came time for me to be an independent teacher with my own class of students, I borrowed from the tools that they had and made them my own, and allowed me to, to have my own recipe of success, I guess, with
Mm,
with the students that I had. And I guess I've done that into the role that I have now, where I've had colleagues and I've had friends in a personal life who I've seen the way they conduct themselves and the way they perform, and I've borrowed from those attributes. So I'm good at mimicking, I guess, others, and
mm,
taking away great ideas and using them for my own. But I wouldn't say it's one individual person who I'd go,
mm.
Mahatma Gandhi. He was amazing. I want to be like him. But I've borrowed from those, and too the attributes I feel that I can emulate.
Well, you look good in a toga, but apart from that, I really like your attitude and what you said there, because we do learn from other people, and if there are people that are teaching you or showing you, or you think, yeah, I'd like to do that, or when that happens to me, I'd like to respond that way, or however it is, taking the best from others and using it and putting your own flavour on it. I think that's a great way to rise and thrive, so to speak. A friend of mine says we talked about music in a previous episode, and one of his sayings that sticks with me all the time is there are no new notes. So there are no new musical notes. They're all there on the charts.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how you put them together, and you can add your flavour on it, but they're there for the taking.
Yeah, and I think too, just on that, backing yourself, I think as well. In a couple of roles that I've had over time, some people have said, "Oh, I wish you wouldn't do that. You're sort of making us look bad by going out and doing that type of thing." And in reflection on those comments, it made me think, well, maybe I just need to play it safe and to not stick my neck out, so to speak. But certainly in the role I have now, I tried to just blend in for the first couple of years with my work colleagues, and I didn't try to stick my neck out or stand out. But what I've done over time, I guess, is seen things that I felt need to be implemented, some practices that I felt could have benefit to one or multiple people, and I've just backed myself and gone with it, and developed a plan and got some consultancy advice and that type of thing as well, and I just continue to forge my own path in the hope that maybe others will see what I'm doing in my professional work life and maybe go, well, that's something that I might like to do myself. So,
I just for clarification, what did you mean when you said, "Oh, people are saying you're making us look bad"?
It was I won't say the employer, but it was a company, a large big box company in Australia that I was working for at the time in their service industry. And what I was wanting to implement was professional feedback to the employees. It was something the company hadn't done before, something I borrowed from my teaching days. And so what I started doing for the region that I was overseeing and those staff that I was the manager for is I implemented performance feedback, a performance feedback process. And my colleagues that I was working with at the time felt that I was implementing processes that they weren't comfortable in actually doing themselves, and they just wanted me to be a quiet achiever and just to sit in the corner, so to speak, and to not try new things or to do new things.
Yeah. Interesting that, and I totally get it. Interesting that the possibility of getting feedback was pretty scary for them.
And providing feedback, I think that was it more for them. I'd come from being an assistant principal in a large international school through to a manager for an adult tech force, and they hadn't been. They'd been part of that tech force themselves and hadn't managed people, so they hadn't provided feedback to others, and they didn't feel comfortable in doing that.
Right.
It was probably more to the point.
Okay, in giving feedback to others. Well, I guess that's a skill as well, and that can be learned. One of the things about feedback, that there's many things, many facets to it, but in a previous life, we were talking about feedback, and one of the biggest things that came out of it was you can actually ask the person you want to give feedback to, how do they like to have their feedback delivered? And that makes a big difference, rather than going, hey, I want to tell you this, and what about that, and what about this? It's like, if we had some feedback for you, how would you like that? Do you want it direct? Do you want us to, mention all the great things you're doing because you're doing all great things in a couple of areas for improvement, or are you just not interested at all? And that's an interesting concept to then deliver the feedback and the communications to the person or the people in a way that they like it. So I'm sure you've heard the expression, feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Indeed.
And I think it is. Getting back to sport, all sporting people, they get feedback all the time, some immediate, or you're in the middle of a game and you pause and you have a timeout to get feedback so you can keep going. So I think it's something that really can propel you to greatness if you're open to it. And I got to be honest, it took me a while to be open to it.
I agree. I do find you're talking the sporting field, I do often find with my PE teaching background, observing junior coaches providing feedback to children as a parent, spectator on the sidelines. But it's interesting at the level of detail and the amount of feedback sometimes that the children are receiving on the sporting field. I think that, if you keep it simple, keep it to 2 or 3 things. I think Emily talked about that with her dance school on a previous episode. Keeping the feedback relevant, timely, and also brief to a degree, and on the 1, 2, 3 things that you might want to focus on, can
Yeah.
help put people on the right path, maybe if they're not on track. So it's something that I have learnt to do. I know in my
Yeah.
early teaching days, certainly you're giving children feedback all the time, but when I moved into
Mm.
leadership roles within a school, I wasn't great at giving adults feedback, and it's something that I've really
Mm.
pushed myself to do. And often now with my workforce that I'm dealing with, they're not receiving necessarily feedback directly from the leadership teams in their school. And that feedback is coming indirectly via me back to that individual. And often that's not well received. They're wondering why I have to be necessarily involved in that feedback trail. And I
Mm.
often say, well, you're getting feedback. I think regardless of where it's coming from, it's something that you need to embrace and to take on board, and hopefully we can work together to put practices in place to address that feedback. So,
Well, it's actually a gift, and it's really interesting. As a teacher, you had the implied permission to give feedback because you're teaching, and I guess that's what's expected. So the kids can learn and grow, but you really need permission in other environments to be able to give it.
indeed.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now,
Now,
Matt,
John, oh, sorry,
oh,
I'm
have you
going to.
got another one for me? Have you?
I've got another one for you. I've really been inspired by some of the quotes that you've been sharing with us
Yep.
via your social posts and your commentary on your podcast. But I came across a quote that I can't necessarily relate to, but I thought it was quite thought provoking.
Mm.
And the quote was, or the comment was, how big would you dream if you knew that you couldn't fail?
Mm. It's a good one, isn't it?
And it's something that I've spent a little bit of time, not a lot of time, in thinking.
Mm.
And I back to my comment about being a risk taker. If you knew that you wouldn't fail, how big would you dream? How hard would you push yourself? What would you invest in yourself for success and for greatness if you knew that failure, which isn't necessarily a bad thing,
Mm.
but if there was no ability to fail, what would you achieve, or what would you try
Mm.
and achieve?
Mm. That's your question to me, right?
Yes, but something maybe to ponder at another time, not necessarily
Oh,
right
mate,
now.
no, I'm happy to answer
Yeah,
it. I'm
yeah,
happy to,
yeah,
and I'm happy to talk about the question. It's awesome. So what I find is that we limit ourselves, whether it's by our surroundings, our circumstances, our own minds. We limit ourselves, and so what I love about that question is that it gives you permission to break through the limits and imagine and use your mind to see where you could go. And it's fun to think about what would I do? And then once you think about those things, and if there's something in that that really inspires you, I feel like that can really draw you into it. So rather than charging to it and going through the hard yards and sludging through to some kind of dream, it's a dream that inspires you, that you're passionate about, that pulls you towards it. And that's what I like about the question and the possibilities that it can give you as a person, as a mindset, to make you happy, because those thoughts are really thoughts of happiness.
yeah.
To think about what would I really be doing, and this is part of the reason why I've started the podcast, because I always wanted to have my own radio show, and also be a international speaker and an author. I'm working on the book, but through the podcast, I'm now speaking into 15 countries, which is totally amazing, and it's just again that's been a dream, and it's being fulfilled via this medium.
Yeah, and that's what I was quite interested in to learn today, of your dreams about being an air steward and about being a builder. And what was the third one?
In the army.
In the army. I didn't know about you. And you think about to your mindset when you had those aspirations. You probably weren't maybe as aware today of the potential failures you could have in those pursuits. So sometimes that childlike, what do you want to be when you grow up type of thing is
Mm,
the children are not seeing the potential risks and they're not seeing failure. And,
mm.
and that's why they're having those big dreams, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, and that's why you say, and you're going to succeed or fail is not an option, however you want to word it, because often what we do, especially as adults, we'll think about something that we want to do, and then the next thought we have will be how we can't do it or why we shouldn't do it. And so that question eliminates that. It's like we're not talking, we don't worry about the how right now. It's just focus on what would it be? What would it be?
Hmm.
And the old journey rather than the destination. It's all about the journey rather than the destination. I really can relate to that because the destination is just a small piece of time. The most of the time you spend is on the journey. So love that
Yeah.
and dream about where you want to go and enjoy that and put yourself in a vibration and a thinking and a mindset of what it would be like to achieve that. I mean, there's a great example of Jim Carrey and his acting. He would go up to the Hollywood Hills and uh, um, play in his mind what the feelings would be like if he was asked by a major Hollywood director to be in a movie and be paid more than $10 million. And he would literally feel the feelings of that actually happened, and he would do that on a constant basis. And whether you believe in or the cosmic stuff or the new age stuff or the vibrational or whatever you believe or don't, the fact is that this individual did that, and that's what happened to him. So I think there's something in that, and I think that what you think is so important with the quality of life that you're going to have. So just say that didn't happen to Jim Carrey. He's having a great night. He's in the Hollywood Hills feeling great about something and using his mind and his thoughts to feel great. So I just think that's a win-win all round.
Yeah, it touches on what Emily talked about, that visualization as well. But back to, and I keep talking about Emily and Matt, sorry, throughout the cast, but they were amazing episodes. Matt talked about when you asked him about achieving greatness, about you getting to achieve something and then you realize that that's not it. There's still more. And I often relate that to maybe a train ride where you get to that destination, you get to that one station, but you actually pass through that station and there's another destination ahead. So really, yes, the journey is more important than the destination, because the journey does surpass that destination at times too.
I think that's part of the human condition and why, as a species, we evolve and continue to evolve, because you think you're going to be satisfied with wherever you've got to or wherever you're going. Once this happens, then I'll be that. Once this happens, then I'll be that. Where uh, as a species that needs to constantly evolve, we always need to be going to the next place. Always need to be going to the next place. So, as a species, we can survive. How many times can you say species in one response? But
I think you've just set the record right there.
I think I've just done it.
Yes.
Hey, talking about records, I've got to share with you something that I just found out this week.
Please.
This podcast is in the top 25% of podcasts in the world. How amazing.
Congratulations. That's amazing. Well done.
And as the number one ticket holder, I want to thank you for all your love and support with this journey. And it's meant so, so much to me, as it does with every person that can hear us right now. I really want to thank you for tuning in and listening, because you're making a difference to my life and to other people's lives. Because the more people that can hear messages of positivity and inspiration, I think the world's going to be a better place. So thank you if you're listening, and share it so other people can listen, and we will have some great guests as a result of that. Sorry to chime in on that one, Matt, but I just had to mention that because it blew me away.
I'm looking forward to future episodes. I've really enjoyed what you've been able to share so far, and I've certainly been thinking a lot about that of late, both the experience of Matt and Emily in particular. And so I'm looking forward to future guests that you have on the show, because I think it's back to what I talked about the people that I've met throughout my life that have inspired me to do things. I'm looking for inspiration from your podcast. No pressure, John. No pressure.
No worries. Well, that's the mantra. So that's what we want to deliver. So if we're delivering, which is what I'm committed to, you'll get it, baby. You will get it. Now, let's say I come to you, Matt. I'm a bit stuck. So, Matt, things aren't going as well as I'd like them to be. I've got a few concerns and a few worries. What would your advice be to me?
A problem shared is a problem halved, often. So to speak up and to let me know, what the issue is, and I would see if I'm the best person potentially to assist you with that, or to put you in touch with people who could. It's something I experience on a daily basis. The name of my company, not a plug necessarily, because I'm quite boutique and I don't have customers as such, but my company is called Rocket Solutions. I'm very solution focused in what I do in a day to day. The rocket refers to the rocket that you might get from your boss if you're not doing a great job, not necessarily the spaceship. So, it's a bit of a conundrum, I guess, the name of my company, but it's really, you either get a rocket or you come up with a solution. And I'm very, very solution focused. So often I find in some of the meetings I'm involved with, I'm often so solution focused that I feel compelled to be part of the answer of a problem, and it's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes it's other people or the people involved that need to come to that solution themselves. So I do find it difficult at times to be sitting back and to not offering advice and to not offering suggestions or solutions. But certainly in my day to day, I provide a lot of professional advice. Advice is probably a word that I use far, far too often. But often too, the advice isn't necessarily professional. Sometimes it's a personal nature too. In some of the staff that I manage, I'm a proxy dad to some of them, where I'm providing them with fatherly advice that I might give to my own children.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. What's some of that advice that you might have had to give in the past?
Sometimes it's just relationship advice. It's about maybe on a professional vein, about training that you might want to undertake, or even just some pursuits. I sometimes it's young, thinking back to my teaching days, it's children that are shy and regressive, and regressive. That's probably not the word I'm looking for. Probably more just timid, and encourage them to go to a local acting school or a community theatre, and to get involved in that. Not necessarily Toastmasters, where it's all quite formal on that, but more so in giving yourself experiences that allow you to not say, I'm shy, I can't do that, but to address that shyness. My own son is really found a passion in theatre, and something that I see a lot of joy that he gets from that at quite an early age. And I often think I'm often envious in that I haven't quite found that passion in a pursuit. I love my sport, but it's not something I'm hugely passionate about as much as he is passionate about drama and theatre. So, yeah, I think it's just encouraging people to try new things, to be that risk taker, and have new experiences in life that could really change the course of their life as well.
Awesome. And I know you love supporting people and uplifting them, and I want to thank you for that. You've done that. Even when I did my first comedy gig, you showed up, and in fact, that was the first time that we actually saw each other face to face.
Yeah. What a great
that
night.
was that stuck with me. But you've been that kind of friend ever since, and I absolutely love our friendship. Now, before we go, it will be remiss of me to not talk to you about food, because food, if you can't see Matt's face, it just changed and lit up. He's I call him a master chef. We've got a channel with our friends that we share food pics with sometimes, and that is very prevalent in that. And it is one of the simple pleasures in life. We have to do it every day to sustain ourselves. But levels above that, to really enjoy it, there's so much joy and experimentation and things like that that you can do and that you do. So, what is it about food that is inspiring you to? Because you really go the extra distance. Some of the meals that Matt tells me his family has, I think, geez, you order that in a restaurant. So, what is it that inspires you about food and preparation and making it?
I don't know, really. It's something we all have in common and something we all share. I know some people would be happy eating Soylent Green every day, or very tasteless. I don't know. It's just something that I feel that coming from quite a large family, it was something that we'd share, that Sunday roast, that sitting around the table together and sharing of the stories. And I think sometimes to bring an enjoyable dish or to try something new. Certainly, I try to inspire my children to involve themselves in cooking. Every Sunday night we actually have a family meal where we're reflective of things that have occurred during the week, but we also all contribute as well. And I guess it's that team that you build around food and around the dining table and the dining experience that's good. And I don't know, just being a bit of a risk taker, trying new things. I am looking forward to trying out my new deep fryer, John, with our chicken wing challenges that we do. So I've got a brand new deep fryer that I'll be bringing to our next event, ready for some hot wings.
Great, because I've got 10 hot sauces ready to go for that auspicious event that we have every now and then. So looking forward to that. So thank you, Matt. Now, I got to ask you, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted me to ask you?
No, not really. I wasn't quite sure the way our conversation would go today, so I've quite enjoyed it, John. Hopefully it's some people that listen to us have some good takeaways. I did think about what some of your other episodes and some books that you talked about, and I am not an avid reader outside of work. I do find in my day to day the amount of reading that I do and the amount of reading information that I consume pushes me to pursuits outside of work where I'm not necessarily reading per se.
Yeah, right. Now that's interesting, right? Because I shared with Matt some sample questions before he came on, and I said, "Can you share a book that inspired you?" And his answer back to me was, "No."
But I have done a bit of research, and there's a book on my Audible or my reading list for the future, and I think it's a adaptation or an extract out of is it Chicken Soup for the Soul, and the
Yes.
book is If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules. I'm not quite sure of the author, but it was a recommendation that coming to me, where there's 10 rules about if life was a game of what you should live by. So that's something that, as a recommendation to me, that I'm passing on to you, but something that I'll be reading up on myself. The other thing too was your playlist, your Spotify playlist. I'm looking forward
Yes.
to. Have you shared that with us yet?
Yeah, it's on all the show notes,
Okay.
and I've mentioned it. And so, thank you for reminding me, because I would have had to do it off camera, off mic. Otherwise, do you have a song that motivates you that we can add to the Merko motivation playlist?
I have a couple for you to consider. You don't necessarily need to
Yep.
add these. Bit of a variety. So there's I know the traditional Eye of the Tiger. I've never found that really
It's on there, mate, because it's one of mine.
a pump me up song, but some things, and this is quite eclectic. So there's the very cheesy "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey.
That's already on there.
Okay.
Yep, good.
Also, I've got "You Sexy Thing" by Hot Chocolate.
Ooh, I like a bit of hot
It's a bit of
chocolate.
self belief. You sexy thing. So,
Oh,
all right.
nice. Have you been dancing to that in the past?
A little bit. I do tend to have a
Nice.
bit of music playing during my work day in the background. I did come across a quite unusual, so it's not a traditional song, but it's basically an artist who shares a lot of inspirational quotes in a song form. All right, so it might be a Spotify. I've got a link that I can share with you, but the search phrases that you should search for are, "I didn't come this far only to come this far." All right, so it's a recommendation to listen. I didn't come this far to only come this far. Something I was listening to last night in between some of your pods, and something that I recommend that you listen into, or something that I think could be quite inspirational, something I'll be playing to my children.
I'm interested in that, knowing the artist and the song for that, so we can. I like the idea of that, having inspirational quotes and sayings in a song. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's what the Merko motivation playlist is about. So thanks for reminding me.
That last one
add...
is quite different, very, very different from what you traditionally have in a playlist, I guess, but something I think that could be quite good.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Oh, that's what we like. Thank you for that, you sexy thing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for your generosity. Thanks for who you are in the world. And I'm not the only one that thinks you're absolutely great, and want to thank you for uplifting me whenever we have an interaction, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's face-to-face and in person. Thank you for being you, Matt.
Thank you, John. I've really enjoyed our time today and looking forward to our next catch-up.
Another incredible episode of Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness. I hope this conversation has ignited a fire within you, inspiring you to take bold steps towards your own path of greatness. And guess what? The journey doesn't end here. There's so much more to explore, learn, and achieve. So if you're hungry for more insights, more inspiration, and more strategies to fuel your personal and professional greatness, get ready, because the next episode is just around the corner. Every Tuesday, to be precise, where we'll continue to unravel the secrets to unlocking your extraordinary potential. Don't miss out on the chance to keep rising and thriving with us. Hit the subscribe button and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. And remember, greatness is not a destination, it's a continuous journey, so let's embark on it together. Thank you so much for being part of the Rise and Thrive community. It means so much to me that you're listening. And my wish for you is that you get so much out of doing so. Keep reaching for the stars, keep pushing your boundaries, and keep embracing the challenges that come your way, because that's how we truly grow. Stay tuned, stay motivated, and get ready to rise and thrive. If you're finding value from our conversations, don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues. Together we can create a ripple effect of positivity, optimism, and positive change. Keep shining brightly. Your greatness knows no bounds. And remember, be great and stay awesome.